The purpose of this lesson is to learn about conditional formatting using Databars and IconSets, and also to learn about how to use Sparklines. Sometimes it's easier to look at data visually rather than actually just looking at the raw numbers. We want to look at things using things like Databars and color scales and IconSets. And then what we can do is we can do things like top and bottom rules, so we can see real easily what our highest and lowest performers are. We can look at duplication values, so if we want to make sure that two different values don't have the same number, we can do that. We can also highlight different cells based on their values. In VBA, data visualizations are managed by the Format Conditions collection, and this contains things like add databar, add IconSet condition, add color scale, add top 10, add above average, and add unique values. There are other ones also that you can add. These are going to be the most commonly used. Databars are used to visualize where values fall in relation to the highest and lowest values. So in this case here, you can see that we have a list of students and each student received a grade. Just simply looking down through the numbers doesn't really give us a good feel for the data, idea of who our best and lowest performers are. We can script it with VBA to actually go through the fields and calculate automatically the data bars. So we can look across the top there and see that the 98, wow, that bar goes almost all the way across the cell. If you go down to student number 8, you'll notice that they received a 58. They were the lowest score, so they don't have a bar at all. And then if you go down to student 13, they received 100%, so they have a bar that goes the whole way across the cell. It makes it real easy to visualize who has the best and lowest scores. Instead of a data bar, we could also use what's called an icon set. And what this does is it provides an icon depending on a conditional statement. It's a quick way to tell how well we're doing without using a chart or a data bar. So essentially what it does is it gives you things like here we have flags, and we could do stars, and we have other things that are available to us, but it just gives a real quick visual. So I can look at that 98, okay, that's a good score, so that's green. And then I can look at the 58 and the 68 and the 65 that are listed down there, and those are red. Well, hey, that's a problem. So the system is going to automatically figure out which icon it should receive based on the highest and lowest score. Sparklines are a little bit different. These allow visualization of data over time. Now, it does require a set of data. The data has to be formatted specifically so that the columns have information related to the same information. So in this case, you can see here that our columns are the years, and then our rows are the months contained within the year. So if you go across and look at, let's say, July, we can see that in 1996, in July, there were 22 orders. And then in 1997, for the same time period of July, there were 33. Look at 1998, and there were no sales. So it just makes it real easy for us to look at these. So what you can do is you can transpose the data to look at it from different perspectives. And we can do this manually, or we can use a VBA script to be able to do this. So what you'll notice is, like here at the bottom, I can see that there were no sales here, and all of a sudden it jumps up and we started having some sales. But I can put these in relation to each other. So now throughout 1997 here, it's fairly steady, and then it increases at the end of the year. But the beginning of 1998 starts off just a little above 97, and then it jumps way up, and then all of a sudden just falls off to nothing. So it just makes a way for us to real quickly see the trend over time for the data that's contained in our sets. I have my workbook here that has a list of students and the grades that the students received, and what I want to do is I want to implement a data bar so that I can visualize the data that's contained within this sheet. So in VBA, what I'm going to do is create a new module, and this module is going to be for adding a data bar. So I'm going to call it Add Data Bar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have to tell it that we want it to create a data bar within a specific range. So we're going to specify that the range is going to be from B12 to B16. That's where the values are, and that's where we actually want the data bar to go. Now, it should be noted that the data bar is going to go directly on top of the on top of the data that's contained there. So we're going to put the graphic in the exact same cell. And so we're going to add a data bar. And then what I want to do is I want to form some sort of condition that we're trying to accomplish. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see how many scores we have and then try to count them and then try to figure out from there what the highest and lowest scores are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable to hold the condition. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say my condition is equal to, and then what I do is I specify that it's the range that I want it to actually evaluate. So B12 to B16. And then we're going to look at the format conditions and we're going to count them. So we're going to count all of the items that are in that range and its formatted conditions, and that's what's actually going to form our data bars. All right, so then what I want to do is with that particular range, so with the range of B12 or B2 to B16, I want to look at the format conditions for my condition, which is going to be that same range again, the count of the range, dot bar color. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some bars and we're going to color them. Okay, so the color is going to be, we're going to make it red, but what we're going to do is we're going to shade it so that way it actually will be a little bit darker color red. All right, and then so what we can do is the color, and we can do tint and shade, and that's going to be equal to negative 0.5. So we're going to make it a little bit darker of a red and end width. All right, so what we're doing is we declare the range where we want to add the data bar. We tell it a condition of what we're trying to figure out. So we're trying to figure out the count of these scores. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pass that into the condition to figure out the bar color and how big it should be. All right, so we're going to go ahead and run this. And then when we run it, if you watch the grade column, it will actually add the data bar for it. And then now they're color coded. So what I can do is I can easily look through this list and see here, hey, this 58 received a really low score, this 100 received a high score, but it just makes it real easy to figure out what the highest and lowest is. Now, if I change this and I say that this person got a 78, watch all of the bars and they will automatically adjust. So now the 98 is the highest score, so now that goes all the way across. And if I adjust this so that this person received a 63, once again, that'll adjust all the other ones based on the highest and lowest scores. So what we're doing is we're just simply providing a visual way to look at the data and see real quickly who matches a particular criteria. Now this works, but this code is kind of messy. If you notice here, we have range B2 to B16, .format conditions, .add data bar, and then we have range.format conditions, range.format conditions. And what we can do is instead of this kind of code, we can actually clean it up just a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reproduce this code with a cleaner version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new variable called db, and db is going to be responsible for the data bar. So I'm going to say dim db as data bar. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that location, that variable, equal to the range, and then it's going to be B2 to B16. And don't worry, I'm going to delete the original code here in just a minute. .format conditions, .add data bar. So what I'm doing is I'm simply setting this as our variable, so that way instead of having all that other long stuff, I can just simply refer to db. So now my with statement becomes db.barColor. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the particular range. We have to look at the condition, and then what we're going to do is we're going to set the colors. So what we're going to do is we're going to say my condition is equal to the range. So B2 to B16 dot format conditions dot count. So we're counting it. And then what I want to do is the db.bar color, I can do dot color and set that equal to RGB 255.00, just like I did before. And then dot tint and shade and set that equal to -0.5. And then we can do our end width. So what I'm doing is I'm simplifying the code up here. So instead of saying format condition, format condition, format conditions, I only have to specify it here. Now I do need to use it here to count it, to put it into this variable. But if I didn't want to use this in a variable here, I could just simply exclude it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the code up here. And then now what we have is a much cleaner version. Oops, tab that over. All right, so now that's a cleaner version. We can look at it a lot easier and see exactly what it's doing. Now this my condition, if I don't want to use it, I can delete that and clean it up a little bit more. And then if I run this, it still works the same as it did before. Now if I want to see it actually doing the work, I need to remove this format that's already applied. So I'm going to clear the formatting. And we'll recenter this just to make it look nice. And then go back and run this again. And there we go. So that is our basic Databar script that we can use. And then like I said, if we do need to use that for anything else, then we just have to set the some sort of condition for later use. Now I also want to have a sub for adding icons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new sub called add icons. And then this sub is going to be responsible for adding the icons to that same data set. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new variable to hold the icon set condition. So just like I did up above where I dimensioned DB as a data bar, in this case I'm going to dim ICS, and that's going to be as, and the ICS by the way stands for icon set condition. All right, so then I'm going to use a with statement. So I'm going to say with range, and then here's our range, so it's B2 to B16. I want to delete any formats that are currently applied to it because they won't work well together. So I'm going to say dot format conditions dot delete. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set ICS is equal to dot format conditions. Remember, this is range B2 to B16 dot format conditions dot add icon set condition. And then we're going to end our with. So because I use the with statement here, that actually will apply to this too. All right, so then I want to use with ICS. Okay, we're going to do the reverse order. Because what it will do is it'll actually put the icons backwards, and we don't want it to do that. We want them to be green for good and red for bad grades. And then so we want to show the icon only. No, we don't. We actually want to see the icon and the value, because if I set this equal to true, it'll actually turn off the value. And then dot icon set. And this is going to be equal to active workbook dot icon sets. And then we have a whole bunch of different ones we can use. So I want to play with what are called flags, but there are different ones that you can use. Now, they are actually referenced by an index number, but there is a chart in the MSDN guides that will show that a lot of these have a name for them. So I can do XL3 flags. So it has 3 different flag states. And then I can do this. So I either would need to know what the index number for the flags is, and it's 1 through whatever number they support, or I need to know the variable for it, and I can pass this in and it'll automatically use the flags for me. All right, so I have this section of code. I'm going to run it. And there we go. So now we have our flags. So you'll see over here that this grade of a 98 gets a green flag. This B gets a yellow, and the only reason this is yellow is because there's not anything really low. So if I were to take this 63 and make it like 43, then that will also move the rest of these flags. Now there are values that we can set for thresholds for what becomes a yellow and what becomes a red. And those are going to be separate statements that you would put in your with statement for the ICS for setting the actual flags and the other options for them. The next thing that I want to play with are Sparklines. And what I have here is I have a set of data from 2012 through 2016, and it's all tabulated by month. It's maybe how many sales we had by year, by month. And what I want to do is I want to make a Sparklines graph across here that actually would give us a showing of the data for each year. And so what I can do with this is the Sparklines are up here under Insert, and we have Sparklines and a line. And if I were to run the macro recorder on this, it makes a whole bunch of text in there, a whole bunch of lines of code to create a set of Sparklines. And it's actually not quite as complicated as the macro recorder will make it out to be. All right, so I'm going to make a sub for adding the Sparklines. And then what I'm going to do is this is actually one line. I give it a range, okay, and the range is going to be where should the Sparkline go? Well, that's going to be in B17. And then that Sparkline is actually going to be drawn right inside of that cell. So I'm going to say Sparkline groups dot add. And then what do I want? Well, I want a type of, and then it shows here we have these options. We have Sparkline column, column stacked, and then a line. So we're going to use the XL Sparkline. And then the source data is going to come from another range. And so we just simply state the range here is going to be B3 through B14. All right, so that's what we're doing is we're just simply saying that in this range of B17, so that particular cell, I want to take a Sparklines group and add it. The type is XL Sparkline, and the source data comes from B3 to B14. When I run this, I'll actually get a Sparkline down here in my chart, or in my cell. So this particular line, or this particular cell, comes from that one line of code. All right, so what I can do is then I can just simply replicate this for the other columns that we have. So I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to copy this and paste this down here. Now we have 5 rows, so I'm going to paste it 4 more times. Oops. Forgot to press enter. Okay, so all I need to do now is change these. So this is C. This is D, this is E, this is F, and then do the same thing with these. So this is C, D, this one's E, and then this one is F. Now when I run this, this will actually create the Sparklines for the other cells along the line there. Now, notice that this is a trend over the course of 1 year, this is the trend over the course of another year, and so forth. Now, we can also do the same thing if we wanted to for the sales by month over the years. And so what I could do to do that would be to add another Sparkline over here. So what that would require is just a similar set of statements to be able to say that the Sparklines here is going to come from this range over here. So to do that would be similar to the other one. So what we're going to do is, in this case, it's I3, and then dot Sparkline group, dot add, and the type here is going to be equal to XL Sparkline. And the source data this time is going to come from not a column, but the row. So it's going to be from B3 to F3. And so now if I run this, come back over here, I can see that I now have a Sparkline. Now, one of the things you may want to do is you may want to make these a little bit taller so that we can actually see what they're doing. But it gives you a graph over time for each of those months. And I can make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, maybe too much. There you go. All right, so now what I can do is I can replicate that for each of these other cells. So we're going to go back over and we will actually make those same statements. All right, so I'm going to do like I did last time. I'm going to copy this. And now I have 12 of these, so I need to paste it 11 times. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, so what I need to change in each of these is just simply going to be the number now. So I go down through each of these. Oops. Okay, and same thing over here. We just increase each of these. And then we also need to increase the F's. All right, so now all I did was just simply replicated that down, and now if I run this, now when I come back over here, I now have Sparklines for each of the years. So I can see for the month of January, you can see that in 2012, the beginning, we actually did better than we are now. Some of these will increase, it just depends. So this is going to be the month of January. This is going to be the entire year of 2012. So it just simply gives us a graphical view of the data to be able to see over the course of the years, or the course of the months per year, how the data actually trends and how many sales we had during that time period. In this lesson, you learned about conditional formatting by using Databars and IconSets, and also you learned how to use Sparklines to be able to show trends in data over time.